The real reason Trump cut
Hi, I'm
funding to
Love
South
Marley,
Africa.
the president of BAPSA, a bold non-racial political party dedicated to building the Republic of South Africa into a nation of opportunity, equality, and justice for all. Today, I come before you to discuss a number of issues related to the ANC's decision to take Israel to the International Court of Justice on charges of genocide in Gaza. The first issue being that Ramaphosa and the ANC should never be treated as heroes for that decision, as many South Africans are now paying a heavy price for this self-centered decision made by the ANC. I will also discuss the real reason why Trump's administration decided to stop funding to South Africa and also impose a 30% tariff on all South African goods. Lastly, I will discuss what global effects this decision has had so far. If you have listened to me very carefully so far, never once did I say a decision by South Africa to take Israel to the ICJ. I said a decision by the ANC. I'll come back to that. Let me start by saying it is all good and well for Ramaphosa to make a bold statement like, Trump, keep your America and I'll keep my South Africa. Because he, like the rest of the ANC elite, has enough money to take care of his family, his children, his grandchildren, his great-great-great-great-great-grandchildren for many years to come. But it's not good at all for an average South African who has to live on less than $1 a day. This is not the first time we are hearing something like this coming from an African leader. If you recall, Robert Mugabe of Zimbabwe said the same thing to the former British Prime Minister Tony Blair, and it did not end well for the people of Zimbabwe. The economy of Zimbabwe has been collapsing since then and is about to reach a point of no return. It is also good and well for leaders like Ramaphosa and Malema of the EFF to say we don't need American aid. But in a country like South Africa, with the highest HIV burden in the world, a cut of funding for HIV/AIDS programs will result in hundreds of thousands or millions of deaths in the country. According to a recent report on HIV/AIDS, 20% of the world's HIV-infected persons are in South Africa. And 20% of new HIV infections also occur in the country. That's very concerning. Now, the biggest myth about Trump's decision to cut funding to South Africa is that it was done in response to South Africa's decision to pass a law that allowed for the expropriation of land without compensation. According to Trump, land is being taken away from white South Africans. This is far from the truth. The only reason Trump slashed aid to South Africa was in retaliation to the ANC-led South African government taking Israel to the International Court of Justice. Think of it as a reciprocal decision taken by the USA, more like a reciprocal decision taken by a parent, America being the parent, in retaliation to what the parent feels you did wrong to their child, Israel being the child of America. It is no secret that the USA is the #1 supporter of Israel when it comes to the Gaza Strip war. America is simply saying, you did something wrong to our Israel, and we are making you pay for it. But unfortunately, it is your average South African citizen who now has to pay for the ANC's self-centered decision. The truth is, no land is being taken away from white South Africans, as alleged. I have had the benefit to peruse the land and expropriation bill that was recently passed into law. You look at the bill, you will find that it involves an 18-step process. What's very clear is that there is a misunderstanding of the law. The biggest misunderstanding is that some people think land will be taken from the whites and given to people of color. This is not correct at all. My reading and understanding of it is that land that is abandoned, farms that are non-productive, and land where people have failed to pay their taxes will be targeted. Even in that case, a proper valuation of the land will be undertaken for the purposes of compensation. One thing that needs to be clarified is that South Africa did not take Israel to the ICJ. The African National Congress, the ANC, did, and they did it for their own financial gain. Your average South African citizen does not know anything about the Gaza Strip war. Your average South African citizen is only concerned about how he or she is going to feed his or her family tomorrow. Your average South African is concerned about finding a job, about finding water, about lack of electricity, about lack of a proper medical system, about the high rate of crime that his family is exposed to on a daily basis. Your average South African is concerned about the out-of-line ANC, which continues to behave and operate like an organized criminal syndicate. The ANC did not take Israel to the ICJ because it's concerned about genocide of the people of Palestine. No, it didn't. As a matter of fact, the ANC is in no position at all to accuse anyone of genocide. The ANC-led government has and continues to commit atrocities against its own citizens. For example, it continues to deny its citizens basic needs like clean water, a better sanitation system, a better medical system. The country has a very high rate of crime and a failed police system, and people die in large numbers on a daily basis because of the ANC's corrupt practices and policies. Indirectly, that amounts to an act of genocide. You also have to ask yourself this. If the ANC was so concerned about genocide, why, up to today, it has not taken a country like Sudan or our neighboring country, Zimbabwe, where genocidal acts are committed on a daily basis, to the ICJ? Why? The ANC leaders are just hypocrites who claim that by taking Israel to the ICJ, they took a stance in the fight against genocide. However, if you look at it, history shows that they have no respect for the same court. In 2015, for example, they refused to arrest then Sudanese President Omar al-Bashir when he visited South Africa while a subject of a warrant on allegations of genocide. They also continue to ignore and overlook the ICC indictment against Putin for alleged war crimes in relation to the allegation of abduction of children from Ukraine. Putin vehemently disputes the allegations, though. However, the fact still remains that the ANC continues to overlook the indictment. Look, the only reason the ANC took Israel to the ICJ was for its own financial benefit. If you take a good look at the timing of the whole thing, you will have your answer. Firstly, we all know that prior to initiating court proceedings against Israel, the ANC was in a financial hole. It was almost bankrupt. The ANC then invited and hosted 3 Hamas officials in South Africa. Following that, the former Minister of International Relations and Cooperations, Ms. Pandor, makes a visit to Iran, which backs and supports Hamas. Upon a return, all of a sudden, the ANC is out of its financial hole. All of a sudden, it has enough money to run a campaign and enough money to take Israel to the ICJ. Look, it does not take rocket science to work out that the ANC was given money by Hamas or Iran, which supports Hamas. Then all of a sudden, people think that Ramaphosa, the leader of the ANC, has all of a sudden grown a backbone to stand up for the people of Palestine against Israel. No, he's not a hero, nor is the ANC. If you look at it, The ANC's decision is going to cost the loss of many South African lives. This decision is already having a big blow on the South African economy. The truth about the ANC is the ANC behaves like a chameleon. In Afrikaans we say, die ANC gedraai soos 'n verkleermannetjie. And if I had to add to that, en hulle is so deurmekaar soos 'n poep in 'n borrelbad. The ANC seems to forget that during the apartheid struggle, the Jewish people gave us unwavering support. Many South African Jews, played a significant role in the anti-apartheid struggle. The Union of Jewish Women, for example, they sought to alleviate, the suffering of blacks through charitable projects and self-help schemes. These charitable projects continue up to today, through programs like, Mission Vale Australia. The majority of people involved in these, charitable projects are from the Jewish background. If you look at it as well, 14 of the 23 whites involved in the 1956 treason trial were Jewish. And all 5 whites of the 17 members of the African National Congress who were arrested for anti-apartheid, activities in 1963 were Jewish. In addition, many Jews actively provided humanitarian assistance for black communities, and some of them continue today. That's why I say the ANC leaders behave like a camouflage of chameleons. They should never be treated as heroes for taking Israel to the International Court. They did it for money. They received Hamas money, and like true chameleons that they are, they quickly changed colors and became the Hamas supporters. It is very clear from the way the ANC behaves that its foreign policy is not and has never been about promoting the country's interests or managing international relations or addressing global interests. It's always about chasing money for the ANC. What I mean by that is, whoever gives the ANC money on the day is who they support, and they will quickly sell out their previous supporters, no matter the consequences on the country's interests. It's very clear from the way the ANC behaves that its relationship with other countries is about making money for itself, nothing beyond that. Because when you break it down into its component parts, the interaction between the ANC and foreign countries resembles that of a prostitute and a client, the ANC being the prostitute. What do I mean by that? If you look at an interaction between a prostitute and a client, at the end of the transaction, everybody goes their own way without sentiment and nostalgia clouding what is purely a business arrangement. If you look at how the ANC interacts with foreign countries, when money stops pouring in from a foreign country, invariably, so too does the ANC's relationship with that country. I'm not saying it is wrong to speak up against the war in the Gaza Strip, or to try and stop the war in the Gaza. Each day I pray for peace for the people of Palestine and the people of Israel. I pray to wake up to the news that, the Gaza war has ended. All I'm saying is that the ANC should stop acting. They should stop deceiving people to believe that, it cares, that, the ANC cares about the people of Palestine. The ANC only cares about the dollar sign. It only cares about the money it is currently receiving from Iran. Once the money stops coming, watch how quickly it will turn its back on the people of Palestine, just like it did to the Jewish people who previously gave us, unwavering support and played a significant role in the anti-apartheid struggle. My message to the ANC is, be careful what you throw away and who you throw away, because they won't be around and available the next time you need them. Look, the truth is, If Israel was the one that came to the ANC's rescue and gave the organization money to take it out of its financial hole, I have no doubt at all that today the ANC will be singing praise for Israel and most probably referring to Palestinians as terrorists. That's just how the ANC of today operates. It goes against the moral beliefs of the late Nelson Mandela, who up until his last day on earth, he continued to maintain a very strong and close relationship with those who supported us in the anti-apartheid struggle. And that's what separates Mandela from these current clowns of the ANC. And for that reason, I personally will continue to support the Jewish people. I will continue to stand with them in the fight against anti-Semitism, just as they stood with us in the fight against apartheid. Some of my best friends today are of Jewish background. I will also continue to stand against Islamophobia, as some of my best friends today are Muslims. As a victim of racism myself, who has experienced the injustices of the apartheid system, witnessed atrocities committed against my family and community, was a victim of police brutality, and saw my best friend gunned down in a street protest, I will continue to stand up against any form of racism. Anti-Semitism is a form of racism. As far as I'm concerned, racism is a disease that can make you think less of yourself. It diminishes you right to the core and shatters your self-esteem. Being told you are worthless because of your race, ethnicity, cultural background, or religious beliefs ultimately undermines you, no matter how resilient you think you might be. The ANC's decision to take Israel to the ICJ has exacerbated anti-Semitism globally. In Australia, for example, a wave of anti-Semitic attacks has roiled the country. We have seen cases of vandalizing or setting homes, schools, and synagogues on fire skyrocketing. I have Jewish friends who are scared to go on daily walks on their own for fear of attacks. Friends who are constantly worried that something might happen to their children at their schools. This is ridiculous, and I personally take a strong stance against it. Jewish people, like every other Australian, have a right to feel safe in their own homes, schools, synagogues, and everywhere in general. The same applies to Jewish people in South Africa. I rest my case.